In this video, we will see what the Bible teaches concerning the nature of man. God created human beings in His own likeness. In sharing with them in likeness His communicable attributes such as goodness, beauty, wisdom, etc. However, the divine attributes such as divine aseity, omnipotence, omniscience, and such attributes only belong to Him. Modern scientific materialism tries to reduce the essence of man to mere flux of atoms and molecules. In response to this, a Christian thinker, C.S. Lewis, the late Oxford professor, says if minds are wholly dependent on brains and brains on biochemistry, and biochemistry in the long run a meaningless flux of atoms and molecules, I cannot understand how the thought of those minds should have any more significance than the sound of the wind in the trees. So you can see what he's saying here. He's saying that if atoms and molecules are governed by some causative laws, and brains are nothing but brains or minds or human thoughts are nothing but flux of those atoms and molecules, then the very thought that materialism is true could not have any more significance than the sound of the wind in the trees. That's what he said. So now, concerning what the Bible teaches concerning the non-physical aspects of human nature, we see the words used in the Bible to refer to the non-physical aspects of human nature are soul and the spirit. The Hebrew words for the same are nephesh and ruah. The Hebrew word nephesh refers to both the material and immaterial aspects of a human person, and the word ruah refers to the breath of life, something like the wind, which is the immaterial, but it is responsible for life. Philosophical discussions surrounding the material and immaterial aspects of human nature go by the name mind-body problem. Materialism tries to reduce all of reality to a simple flux of atoms and molecules which are governed by the laws of nature, while idealism holds the opposite view that all reality is pure consciousness and immaterial consciousness creates the material reality. So here you can see two opposite views. However, majority of Christian thought holds a dualist position on the reality of both physical and holding the reality of both the material and immaterial reality. So the Christian thought majority has held a dualist position which affirm that both material and non-material reality, immaterial reality exists. Now we come to see the fallen nature of human beings that is taught in the Bible. From the initial state of grace, that is when God created us in His own likeness, human beings fell by disobeying God and as a consequence inherited a fallen nature. And just as we inherit both credits and debts of our fathers, we inherit both life and the curse of sin from the first man, Adam. Now this is termed as original sin by theologians, and this is what John Calvin, an important Reformation figure, has to say about original sin. After the heavenly image in man was effaced, he not only was himself punished by a withdrawal or ornaments in which he had been arrayed, wisdom, virtue, justice, truth, and holiness, and by substitution in their place of those diapers, blindness, impotence, vanity, impurity, and unrighteousness. But he involved his posterity also and plunged them in the same wickedness. This is the hereditary corruption to which the early Christian writers gave the name original sin, meaning by the term deprivation of a nature formerly good and pure. So this is what a Reformation figure, an important Reformation theologian, John Calvin, had to say about original sin. Now, Thomas Aquinas, an important medieval theologian, he gives a rational justification for a innate corruption. So he says the very fact that we are tempted by evil proves to show a innate desire for evil, for we cannot be tempted by what we have no desire for. Therefore, just as much as we affirm in a common lingo that we all make mistakes, nobody is perfect, to err is human and forgive is divine. So we all affirm in a common lingo that we all are sinful human beings. And this is what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Saint Augustine says that what he tells men, he tells us that what will satisfy you, O greedy man, if God Himself is not enough? Only God is big enough to satisfy the longings of the human heart, and man's search to satisfy this longing apart from God, C.S. Lewis terms as the horrible story of human history: pride, ambition, and lust. The pessimism that breeds in the horrible condition of man is found worded by these two brilliant thinkers in the following way. The misery of human nature, with its eternal longing, which creates wants much in advance of man's power of satisfying them, cannot but make us feel that life is a curse. Tormented by thought, cheated by chance, defeated by the forces of nature, oppressed by the massive weight of duty, the horror of death, the dread of conscious lives where the tragedy of existence will be repeated, the individual cannot help crying, "Let me escape." This is what Blaise Pascal, uh, a brilliant mind, had to say. And thus, while the present never satisfies us, experience dupes us, and from misfortune to misfortune leads us to death, their eternal crown, what is it then that this desire and this inability proclaim to us? But that there was once in man a true happiness of which there was now to remain only the mark and empty trace, which he in vain tries to fill from all his surroundings, seeking from things absent the help he does not obtain in things present. But these are all inadequate, because the infinite abyss can only be filled by an infinite and immutable object, this is to say, only by God Himself. He only is our true good, and since we have forsaken Him, it is strange to think that there is nothing in nature which has not been serviceable in taking His place.